Welcome back. In my last map making tutorial, we made this guy. And it was meant to be just a quick little video to show you the basics of just how to improve with a couple little tricks. And like I said, it was meant to be quick and basic. So today we're going to do a little more in-depth. There's lots of things I didn't do in the last one that are things that you can do if you want to spend a little more time. We didn't really do anything creative with sand. This island looks like a bean, that sort of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to my blank map here. Turn off the spawns for animals, biomes, grass grow trees, all that stuff. You could also just pause your game, but if you're like me, you like to keep it running because it makes you feel better, and then when you place like water, you don't have to like unpause it to get the water to move. It just is already moving. It makes your map feel like it's alive while you're making it. Depending on what you want to make. I know that I'm kind of partial to doing this. I really enjoy making maps that you only see a portion of. And what I mean by that is you would take a world and say like this, and you'd fill in this side, right? And don't worry, we haven't started yet. This is not the tutorial. You're like, yeah, this is how you make good maps. Trust me. Doesn't this look great? What I mean is you have one landmass that comes off the edge of the map. You see that? Instead of putting an island just in the middle of your map and saying, look at this cool map. Isn't that great? You can do that if that's what you want, of course. But I know I really like how much nicer you can make maps look if you do it like a coastline. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to make a coastline. And all the tips from this video will work whether you're making an island or a coastline. It really doesn't matter, but that's what we're going to do. Last time we did the map in like just the top third of the map. So we're going to make more landmass. We're going to give it kind of a swoopy shape here. Start with the close ocean. I like to do a brush that is one of these that has kind of scattered pixels rather than the default ones. We will be vortexing them anyway, but I find that a vortex is a little bit better if it's not even to begin with. So start with kind of a random kind of squiggly pattern. Don't overthink it. Just squiggle your way across the screen. Next, you can decide where you want some deep kind of bays to be. Like here maybe? You don't have to do that, but you'll see what I mean once we fill in the next layer. So for this next part, same thing, but shallow waters this time. And you're going to follow the inner edge. And you don't have to follow it perfectly. It might actually look better if you kind of like give it some variety where you come really close and then you kind of back it up and you go in real close again. Like that. You see? Pretty good so far. This is something we did not do in the last tutorial. We just went straight into making the land because it's faster. If you don't care about the shorelines and the water looking just right, then you can skip this whole part. But the next thing you do is obviously put in the land. I like to take sand with this second brush and just kind of go down along the shoreline, shallow water. The goal is to make things look as non-human made as you can, because the more straight and flat and organized everything looks, the less real it looks. I don't know if you've been outside recently, but not everything's all straight lines. You know, you look at a mountain, it's not a perfect cone shape. It's all over the place. Sometimes beaches are in straight lines, but there's also patches that aren't. Okay, next, we're gonna go inwards a little bit. But before we do, decide where you want maybe a sandbar or like a big beach area. So like this area, I want this area to just be like a long, kind of beachy peninsula. We'll put like palm trees and stuff on it, so. And note, obviously, that you're not paying attention to the water on the inside of the sand anymore. That's going to be covered up with soil, so you don't have to worry about this side at all. Let's actually adjust this a teensy bit, give this bay a little more bay. Sometimes it's fun to kind of go like this and kind of mix in some shallow. It looks dumb right now, but once we vortex it, it will look better. Kind of give it like a little bit of a wide thing there, like that. So that's just to give it some variety so that it's not just lines on top of lines on top of lines. And we will vortex after one more step. We're going to add in plain soil. I like to start with plain soil across the way, all the way. And a good thing to keep in your mind is don't fix everything. Like just now, I kind of went really close here and kind of went too wide right here. So my first instinct was to cut this off and add planes through here, right? But then I decided to not, because that is what makes it look more interesting. So let's just, for safety, do one really big, just kind of boom, just so we kind of feel more like we're making some land here. And then let's vortex. For vortex, I like to take one of the bigger ones, depending on what you're vortexing. So we're gonna just hit the edge of the beach I don't want to jumble up the beach too much, so we'll just tap along the beach here like that. And then let's go down a size and let's jumble up the ocean a lot. So you can really hold it down, hold it on the water quite a bit. The best part about this is that you really cannot mess this up. You can pretty much vortex the ocean line like this as long as you want. And I don't think I've ever been like, oh no, I held it too long. Like, it's pretty much, the longer you go, it really will never look bad. It will only probably look better the longer you go. Because the real beaches, it's not so consistent where you walk out from the shore and after 10 feet it drops a little deeper, and then exactly 10 feet more it drops into deep ocean. It just ain't like that. That looks good. I'm actually happy with that. Here's something you can do as well. You can throw in, say, like this. That's probably too much, to be honest, so let's go ahead and go like that. And then you can maybe vortex that around. Put some rocks on the beach, because that is something that happens. So we got a big landmass, super boring right now, nothing going on. We could put some islands out here later on, but right now we just want to make this look better. If you want to have mountains in your world, which you pretty much always should, because it adds so much depth to your world that you otherwise don't get. So what I like to do is, let's actually save it. I would recommend saving your world before you make earthquakes, because sometimes they just don't do it how you want them to. These, I would say, use sparingly. I'd say use these to get yourself started, but don't rely on them too heavy, because they do make things look kind of chaotic and not always in a good way. They're very inconsistent, and they're mostly just to give you inspiration. So let's say this side's going to be kind of our lowlands, this side's going to be kind of our foresty, jungly area, and then up here we're going to have kind of a mountainous region. So you'll see sometimes it will go upwards and sometimes it will go downwards. It makes the same basic shapes, but sometimes it will dig you down and create water and sand, and sometimes it will go upwards and make mountains and hills. So like I said, this is for inspiration. We took parts of it that we liked and we can go from there. Boom, let's get rid of that water. There we go. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll take this single dot, this single pixel. It's not really a pixel, of course, but for the sake of the game, we'll call it a pixel. I like to take a single pixel and kind of fill in what it made me. Because usually when you get mountains this way, they're very thin. Very thin. So I'll kind of widen them a bit with the hills tool. Then take the mountains, same tool, kind of fill in the middle so that the majority of the mountain isn't just hills, it's actual mountain. There we go, just like that. And at this point you could make other shapes if you wanted, but don't worry too much about it. Just go like that and then vortex it down. Fill in the openings that it creates. When you're making skinny mountains like this, that will happen because it's grabbing soil from around it and just shuffling it in, and that's pretty much hard, but I personally think skinny mountains look the best. And don't they look great? So there you go. We are of course not done with mountains by any means, but it's a good place to start and we can add on from there. So just to define some areas, like I said, this will be the cold mountainous region. This will be the lowlands. We'll probably put Savannah, maybe some more sand, maybe like an oasis in here, and then kind of jungly, foresty, whatever else we want down here. So let's go ahead and get some more forest up here because it's deeper in the mountains, it's higher elevation. So I'm kind of clicking around really fast, leaving gaps, and it will vortex a lot better if we do it that way. Feel free to use whatever tools you can to get in as close as you want to the mountains. Again, leaving some plain soil. Okay, there we go. Let's make some water here. We're gonna actually not do sand for this water. I know, controversial, but in the mountains, you're really not gonna find sand. So let's take some plain soil, gonna draw the outline like we usually would. Then let's take shallow water and get rid of all the forest soil on the inside. Isn't that nice? Of course, we don't have water, so there we go. Now, the thing about shallow water, and my favorite thing about shallow water, is that you can freeze it. Like that. Froze the ground around it, of course, but that's okay. We might as well throw in some grass. I think this whole area is probably going to be grass, to be honest. Let's go ahead and make just this bit cold. Let's go across the top of the mountains. Okay, let's just go ahead and add in the last bit of forest soil over here and then add in some biomes. So like we did last time, when you have a big blob of plain soil and you're planning on adding in like a jungle, you don't want to just plop it in there. You want to have as much variety of terrain as you can. So you can kind of put in patches like this, some big, some small, even if you overlap them. And then, of course, our favorite thing in the world, the Vortex Tool to kind of blend it up a bit. Normally I would not use this much forest soil, but since this is literally going to be a jungle, that's why I used so much of it. Feel free to just hold it there as long as you want, do whatever you want, until it looks kind of good. I don't like how dense this is right here, so we're going to kind of scraggle that up right there. Not a real word, but okay. Okay, let's add jungle right up next to the edge here, all the way around. And we're going to kind of cut it off right here, and we'll come back and deal with this edge later on. And we're going to leave this bottom edge down here, and I'll tell you what for in a minute. Swamp's a little tricky to use sometimes because you really have to be gentle with it. Quickest tap you ever saw. Actually, I was dumb and I meant to do this first. Fill it in with jungle first because you don't want to have plain soil. Okay, now tap, tap, tap. We're going to have this kind of move up into the thick of the forest here, just like that. So some of it will be traversable. Most of it will not be in here. Okay, feel good about that. We will turn on grass overgrowth so that these lines will fill themselves in, but we're kind of getting the basics down first. So we have a large area here, and we have a couple more biomes we want to use. I'd love to use Savannah. I feel like Savannah, it being yellow compared to all these other green biomes, really adds color to your map. So what you want to do for a little bit of realism is keep them away from the beach. You want to put them inland. You're not going to have a Savannah that goes right up to the water. You will want to put like an oasis or some watering holes in it, but you're going to want to put it kind of far up the coast. So let's go and put it up here. There we go. Cool. I think I do want to put in a few patches of forest soil. For Savannah, I don't usually do much for this, but it does help just add a little bit of depth to it. Because there aren't going to be mountains in the Savannah. It's all flat. But these can almost behave like a mountains, where you kind of have them line the front and then have a big area in the back. That's the lowlands. So it's kind of like you're creating like a valley almost. There you go. Looks good. In the middle here, we can do a little oasis. You don't have to worry about doing close ocean and then shallow waters for this. I'm doing it because it's like a habit. But you literally could just do shallow water and it would probably look better, to be honest. Do as I say, not as I do. Vortex that a good amount, but not too much. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we got to figure out what to do with this huge area. And this is the problem with making gigantic maps like this, is that you can have a gigantic jungle area, a gigantic mountainous grassy area, and then and a huge savanna, and still have like a third of the map left. And you're like, what do we do? More of this? And the answer is yes. We're going to do more grass that just kind of comes down. So let's start with forest soil, of course. You can tell we've already got a good amount in there. So we're going to kind of come down. We're going to have it connect with the jungle. And we're going to just give it like a little bit of that. I went a little too hard. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. I kind of want this to feel like it's connected. So let's kind of keep... yeah, right there. Okay, perfect. Okay, now we're going to add grass. Go right up next to the savanna, all the way down to the beach. Okay, cool. So we have this little beach area. That's all fine and dandy. So let's go. This sometimes can look kind of cool. You literally just take the 1 pixel tool and you just scribble. You just scribble all around it until it's, I would say, 50% filled in. Try to get as close to the edges as you can without going over. This is to get a really even spread, because like you've seen with these tools, once you click with one of these, it almost completely makes a blob you really can't undo. But if you really want to mix, you can use that technique. So now, vortex everything until you can't tell it was just lines. And then let's go ahead and enchant it. And since it's a made-up biome, there's really no logic behind where it can or can't go. Alright, so I would say let's throw in plants, because I know we're all dying to get some trees in here, because that's really what makes it look nice. But not yet, young grasshoppers. We need to do mountains first, and water. What you want to do is plan mountains and water together, because water goes really well with mountains. You'll notice in most of the worlds I make, I usually have mountains and like a lake or something in the valley of the mountain. In lots of my worlds, I also like to have mountains kind of be the border between biomes. I find that it makes the transition from one biome into another like make more sense and look better. So let's go ahead and do that. We have these two mountains that are just kind of our for looks mountains. So now let's keep our mountains away from the savannah. Let's put a mountain that transitions grass plains into enchanted. So like I said earlier, so let's start with a really big thing for hills. We're gonna do these a little bit wider. Have some maybe offshoots, whatever you want. Just give it some variety to it. It looks kind of like a rat, honestly, doesn't it? We're not here to make rats. Fill in the middle with a bigger brush. I'd recommend ending with taking this single dot, and scribbling really looks good, honestly. It's kind of my favorite thing to do is just scribble and then vortex. Let's get some cold up in here. I like to pretty much go through the main middle mass of the mountain, but not go to the edges, because we're not actually in the mountains right now. We're in lower lands. So the whole mountain's not going to be covered in snow, just the tops of it, because it's not actually that high. These ones you can add a little more to, because they're actually pretty high up there. Okay, there you go. It needs a friend, so let's go ahead and scribble some hills over here, maybe connect it. Same thing, scribble over it with the mountains. Vortex, and then make it chilly. Cool, there you go. Scribble away. Vortex, excellent. And then make it cold. There you go. Scribble, we're going to do some offshoots here. Vortex, freeze it pretty much all the way over because of its location. There we go. That looks nice. So let's go ahead and make a little tiny bit of water over here. We're gonna just do shallow like this. Have it maybe come off the side like that. We'll turn erosion on so it'll give us a little bit of an edge there, but we don't want as much sand as other things because it's not like gonna be a sandy beach. It's just gonna be a really small beach. So you can leave that like that. And let's make kind of a bay here like that. Okay. Let's put some water in the grasslands maybe by the mountains. Like that. And then maybe a little area kind of in the center of the enchanted biome. Another little body of water. Again, we will let erosion deal with the water on those. Let's go ahead and fill them up though. So let's turn on erosion and grass grow some trees. And of course, we're not going to trust the game to make the trees for us. We are going to take matters into our own hands. So I know it's really tempting just to kind of take the big tool and just go across the whole map. And that honestly would look fine. But you do want to have some variety. So like this area near the water, lots of plants because it's near the water and plants like water. Kind of same thing over here. Same thing over here. Same thing over here. Looks good. And then, super quick across the map. Super quick. You can even just tap it, and you can skip certain areas too. You will end up with gaps, which is what makes this look good. You will end up with areas that you pretty much missed, and that's good. You can fill them in if you want, but know that it gives it more variety the more areas don't have something. Next, I like to take the big tool and just very quickly go over all of my forest terrain that we made. All the dark soil. Again, very loosely, very quick, nothing too crazy. Okay, so you see we got some variety. We got some empty areas where the soil is more plain soil. We got the watering hole, pretty sparse of trees, but lots of plants. We've got some coastal areas that transition from sand into soil, and it's not immediately forest, right? It's just you're at the beach, and you walk up through some dirt, and then eventually you're in the woods. You see that? You got the swamp that we made in a very thick forest soil area, so that's nice and thick there. We've got the mountains transitioning into a forest surrounding the watering hole. Savannah, we kept it very plain. We did lots of plain soil. I do like trees kind of sparsely populated because of the grow trees thing. But this is what I consider to be pretty ideal. We could put some trees up here. You could honestly do a little more here, a little more here, maybe more like that. This could come down a little more, maybe some trees on the beach here. There you go. You could fill in a little bit here with a small tool so that it transitions from thick forest into sparse forest a little bit more smoothly. I would consider that to be pretty good. the last few things that you can do if you want to keep going, rivers, and then of course materials if you'd like to put those in there. But rivers are really important. So, just a little river. Boom. To the water. And let's say another river comes out from here and connects with that one. Right there. Let's say here. Let's not go straight to the water. Let's have it kind of curve around like that. Maybe another one that kind of does something similar and meets almost next to it. There we go. It's tempting to have some rivers come out of the swamp, but we're going to not. Connect this little river through the mountains. Kind of zigzagging and swerving like a snake. Now, it's obviously going to be frozen in here, and if it's not, we will freeze it. There you go. Let's go ahead and freeze the water, not all the way to the line, but kind of like that. Because the water obviously is melting as it gets lower elevation, and it is eventually becoming flowing water. That way this river actually makes sense. Let's have it split. Kind of on that line there. Boom. Alright, I feel better about that. That looks a little more dynamic. I like to avoid making inaccessible areas because of my water. This is a very low water map for me. Usually I'll do big lakes and rivers everywhere. But I'm keeping it kind of casual because right now there's no impassable terrain. You know, you can obviously go around this. You can obviously go around this. And if you wanted to get right here, from over here, you can go around this. Or I think you can actually walk across the ice. The only thing that I am missing right now is I really feel like there should be a body of water in here. I just can't look away from this spot and not look at that. So real quick here. Okay. Since it's an extra big lake, we're going to actually put in the deeper water. There we go. We're going to very lightly vortex because we don't care that much because this is just a lake. Kind of get the edge there too. There we go, but the main reason we did that is that we have an excuse to make more rivers. So let's have this river come down through the forest, connect to this guy. Gonna have a little gap there. Gonna connect that one to there. Maybe one more up here. Let's have this one cut through the mountains, actually. And let's make a little kind of mountain pool up here. There you go. Cool. And then last thing I like to do is kind of line the rivers with trees because it's extra fertile soil. Not line them, but just give them a little suggestion of trees. Okay, I'm gonna call that a day. I really like how this turned out. Hopefully you guys learned something here. If you want to, you could throw rocks in there. I like to keep the rocks near the mountains. I like to put some gold in the enchanted biome. That sort of thing. It helps to put fruit bushes, spread it around because, I don't know, people tend to starve to death if you don't give them any. So there you go. Again, it's nothing too crazy. I'm not like a professional or anything. If I was making an actual map to look really good, I would definitely have spent more time on each step that we took in this video. But since this is a giant map, and I didn't want it to be a super long tutorial, nothing in here is so over the top. This would just be a nicer looking, still really playable map. So hopefully these tips helped you out. Like I said at the beginning, if you wanted to put islands out here, you would pretty much do the exact same thing we did at the beginning, but just a little bit smaller. We're going to make Guitar Island here, I guess, and then fill it in like that, to then fill in with soil, and bada bing, bada boom, that's how it's done. Vortex it real quick, make it whatever biome you want, load it with trees, and you got an island. Islands, in my opinion, feel the most real when they have their own little islands near them. Yeah, that's honestly pretty common for islands. I don't know if you guys know many islands. A lot of my friends are islands, so I'm very used to this. But it's helpful to put just some like sand little things next to it. It really adds a lot. And then obviously vortex like that. See? Looks good. There you go. I will put this on Steam Workshop for you so that you can do World of Gorg. Although I would encourage you to apply what you've learned and make your own map. But if you want to take a closer look and play around on this map, I know that that's fun to do as well. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned. If you have any of your own tips, feel free to let me know what your tips are because I'm always looking for little tricks. It wasn't my own original idea to use the Vortex Tool. Someone told me that, and ever since then, that's been the most helpful thing ever. So there's always more things to do. There's always more ways to make things look better and make things look better easier. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time. Don't forget to subscribe.